What actually helps kids survive and go on and thrive when they have lived through war or sexual abuse, AIDS, suicide, and loss most adults can't imagine? Today's guest didn't study that question from a distance. He sat with the kids, he listened, and he stayed. Derek Peterson has spent his life asking one essential question: what actually helps kids succeed, and how do we prove it? A nationally recognized youth development leader, Derek blends data, heart, and serious appetite for the edge. He's biked across continents, hiked the Pacific Crest Trail, paddled the Yukon River, and crossed the Grand Canyon rim to rim, not for glory, but because growth happens where comfort ends. Derek believes the risk is the point, that suffering happens alone, but healing never should, and that if you grow your soul big enough, even the heaviest pain stops running the show. If you've ever felt like the one who didn't fit in, this one's for you. Before we dive into everything,
Okay, all right.
Before we talk about what you've done, what you've survived, all the beauty you've brought into the world, I love to start with my favorite question. Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
What is your superpower?
What is my superpower?
What is your superpower?
So a superpower is something that you didn't ask for, right? A superpower is something that you kind of avoided and you kind of don't like because it puts you in certain positions that maybe you're not ready for when you're young, or like, why do I have this superpower instead of another superpower that I really want, like being able to put a basketball in a hoop from 80 feet consistently. So if the definition of a superpower is that, nobody is the boss of me. I really don't like authority that I don't accept. And so I'm very good within systems, and I choose the people who have authority over me very carefully, and have my whole life. Even when I started my first teen club when I was 15 years old, we chose each other. That's how it usually works. But I think if somebody would look at my resume, they'd go, "You don't have much of a resume." And I would say, "I never wanted a resume, I wanted a life." Because I don't just let anybody be the boss of me, especially if they say, "Well, I'm paying you." Well, then I'm gone. Goodbye. You just can't quit. Yeah, I can. So there you go. I hope that's an answer.
Yes. I also see your superpower as someone who brings communities together. And you remind me of, like, if someone didn't have a great dad, you would be a wonderful dad figure in all the work you've done. And you're playing it humble on You Have No Resume. And we will dive more into all the beauty that you have done. So I love your humility.
Well, thank you.
Since us humans are beautifully flawed, what do you wish you were better at, and maybe envy of others?
So because I'm 64, and because I used to wish that a lot, and because I've kind of backfilled a lot of that, so that's how you get to be an elder instead of just an older guy, is that you kind of like, "Oh, I wish I had that. I think I can become that, or I can get enough of that to move forward."
And maybe you're there. Maybe it's what you once wished. That's also great, because you've
Oh, there
also.
you go. That's easier.
I like that, especially.
Yeah. What I once wished, it's hard because it was always good enough, right? So what did I wish to be better
I
at?
love this. I love that this is difficult for
Yeah,
you.
like, is this an answer? Everything.
I love it, because you're a constant learner. That is something I know about you. And that's what you also shared, is the constant curiosity.
Why pick
Right?
one damn thing? I mean,
Why?
everything.
I love it. I love it.
I'm doing my best.
And also, you already have the gift of speed reading, which so many people don't have, to be able to be a sponge. I love that. And just one more question, just around who you are. If I were to ask some of your best friends and maybe some of your colleagues that you're very close to, how would they describe you?
I don't do shallow friends very well. So my friends and I, we have these little funnels that we run each other through so that we have conversations like this pretty regularly. So my friends would say that I love well, and they would mean that pretty focused. Like I love my wife, I love my kids, my PH kids. I I wish I was more like Will Rogers, who can say I never met a man or woman I didn't like. That's not true.
Very fair.
I
I wonder if
have,
he's
I have
honest.
met some, not many, but I have met some that I don't like or that I fear, right? And that's part of being my age. But for the most part, I haven't. Most 99% of people I have learned from, and they're in my life.
Totally fair. Uh, I want to just get that feeling of like who you are to your closest people. And I want to take us back all the way to childhood because this is something I know about you. So I'd
Uh-huh.
love to dive a little bit. Um, Death is often spoken about, and in my sphere, and it's also been a catalyst. So you grew up around literal, not symbolic death. You grew up around this. So tell us
Yeah.
about that and how did it shape your relationship to life?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. So we can go from one being a country boy, so death of animals, death of pets, death of neighbors, and the way my culture handled death back in the early 60s was it wasn't necessarily done by the mortuary. It might have been done in a farmhouse. It might have had the body on display in where the family took care of the body, did what we pay somebody to do now, wash the body, prepare the body, put the coins over their eyes. So
And
I'm a huh?
to be clear, just so the audience knows, why are you so connected to death and all of those pieces? How your family is connected to that.
Yeah, yeah. So one, farming and rural. So that's one, just the culture. And then my dad, because he was a go-getter, and he was a teacher back then, and he took on these other jobs. So one of our jobs from since I was like 4 years old all the way, well, I was doing it into my 40s because he was doing it all along. He didn't give it up. We were caretakers of two cemeteries in Moose Lake, Minnesota, and we took great pride in making sure those cemeteries were well done. That's why my dad had the job for 40 years. Well, I mowed that cemetery twice a week. I filled graves. I buried. I lowered caskets into the ground. I took caskets out of the mausoleum. I I was very comfortable around all of the accoutrement of death, right? All the accoutrement of death, and held it sacred because in a small town, we didn't used to dig. It was northern Minnesota, so you didn't dig a grave in the winter because the ground was frozen to 4 feet, right? And
Right.
so we put them in a mausoleum, and it's a small town, but people still pass away in a small town in a small region, and we would have maybe 25 caskets inside the mausoleums to people who passed away once the ground froze, and we took those. We didn't laugh about it. We took them very seriously. We didn't know everybody whose name was on the casket, but we assumed that everybody whose name was on the casket was loved, and it was kind of a reverence.
Totally. And I think something that's important to acknowledge is so many people, A, don't talk about death, period, in their families, many people. And B, you were experiencing it at such a young age. It's probably you don't even think anything of it, but how has that shaped you? Have you thought about how that has shaped you and how you live your life, knowing that you were so close to death? Lots of children aren't even spoken about. You might not have even thought about this, but
Yeah.
I'm curious.
I um I just got goosebumps. So I don't know why I got goosebumps. I don't know why. Maybe I just had an epiphany, I guess. I'm certainly not afraid of dying. I'm not at all afraid of dying. Never have been. Never. I thought kind of what I and my parents weren't. We none of us thought death was icky.
No
Like
fear.
it
Yeah.
wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't like it wasn't. And we would, and it was our job to kind of make the place that a lot of people come and visit once a year, once a lifetime. So when they came to their plot, they'd go, "Wow, Dad's here, Grandpa's here," or and that we would see that would happen. I don't know if it happens so much anymore, but that would happen in our two cemeteries. People would drive up. Their family would maybe be visiting for a reunion or something. They would walk over. They would stand around the gravesite. Somebody would put some new fresh flowers on and stuff. And we would always shut the mowers down, and we would kind of get out of the way, right? Kind of hide, get behind some trees or something like it. Let them have their space. You know, these, these mowers. And no, so how did it? Yeah, I never was afraid to die. I always figured that I didn't know where I came from before I was born, and I figured I'll go back to that same place. So I wasn't afraid to be born, obviously. So why would I be afraid to go out the other way? So that's
Okay,
kinda
I
how
just
I
need
thought.
to call that out, that is so powerful, that there's a huge, vast majority of people who don't talk about death, who run away from death. And I believe part of your gift is that you have welcomed from the very beginning, and thus there is no fear. When asking you the question, what was taboo in your childhood, your answer was, I don't have any secrets.
Yeah,
So
I don't have any
when
secrets.
you don't have any secrets, and is there a gift in that for you?
Well, I just got goosebumps again. I I suppose. I mean, if everybody else is like a Dickens character carrying around the chains of secrets, right? And they have to make sure that nobody finds out who they really are. I guess I never thought of it. Yeah, I guess I don't drag those chains around. You can find out who I am pretty easily. Just ask or watch me. Kind of, what you see is what you get, right? So there you go.
Absolutely. So you don't have those change. So that has, in my perspective, allowed you to really not waste your pain, but use it for good. So you've dealt with a lot of pain in your life, whether it's of the body, death of a
Mhm.
loved one, death of identity.
Mhm.
You even had choice-based suffering from what I know of you. So so let's
Yeah.
go here. This is what we're here for. So
Okay.
when
All right. All right.
when you hear the phrase, don't waste your pain, what does that mean to you? And I'm so curious what you're going to dive into first, because you can go anywhere with this.
Yeah, I don't waste your pain, but that's when you can't. When I heard that was your theme and your quest, I think that is the quest. Don't waste your
100%.
pain.
That's right.
Um, so, because my work of the world is resilience. So, what is resilience? Resilience is taking big risks and knowing that you'll be okay at the other side. Now, taking big risks doesn't mean, oh, we're gonna always be successful. Sometimes you take big risks and you're never successful. That's not the success. Isn't the goal. The goal. If I can get people to understand that the risk is the goal, the learning that comes from the goal, the expansion of your spirit, of your soul. In my work, we call the soul the source of unlimited light, right? We play with light in my work. And so this idea that you cannot grow your soul without doing things that freak you out. Or
Yes,
if it doesn't freak you out, it freaks out everybody around you.
that's right. Yes.
So guarantee it's freaking somebody out that loves you, going, "Whoa!" Right? That's what it is. That's
Tell
don't
me
waste your pain.
something that freaked someone out. Tell us some time that you took a risk, you stepped in and opened that soul even bigger.
Uh-huh.
And what did you create from that?
I was in pursuit of being a college president, and I was in pursuit of being one of the nation's youngest college presidents because I had a big enough boat motor to move me in that direction. So I became a college vice president in when I was 31 at a small liberal arts college in Alaska. And one of the vice presidents came in my office and said, Derek, I was skeptical. I didn't know. I didn't think we should hire a 31-year-old. I didn't know you could do it. I was skeptical, but you did a great job. And he said, you do that 35 more years, you do as well as you did last year, 35 more years, you'll have a good career behind you. And I broke out into a sweat because
You're
I
like, wait
thought, that I will not do. I will not be that man. And so I literally went home to my wife going, I can't do it. I don't want to do this. And she goes, what are you going to do? You've been putting all your energy in that, all your eggs in that, put all your eggs in one basket and watch that basket. Like, okay, I did. Bad advice. Bad advice, because then you really got to freak people out because you told the whole world what you're going to do and you were watching your basket, and then you decide whether it's leaving a marriage, leaving a community, leaving a job. I left a job, left a career, I guess. I literally left a career. Um, and my first wife and I sold everything we owned after 10 years of marriage. And we were going to our goal was to pedal the Western Hemisphere from Prudhoe Bay to the southern tip of Argentina. And so that trip freaked people out.
because you left your VP job and you decided to travel the world.
Bicycle. People, if I had
Bicycling.
got an RV, they'd have said, that's cool. Or if I had got a Marriott Discover card and plane tickets and gone to see the highlights, they'd have thought, that's cool. They couldn't get their mind around pedaling the boring parts and doing what most people think are the uninteresting parts. Those are the places between the tourist attractions. And to be honest, we avoided the tourist towns like the plague because you don't want to ride a bicycle where there's heavy traffic. You just don't. It's not good math.
Also, the non-tourist towns have the magic, the space where you're really seeing how people are living.
It
So
just
I
gave me
see the joy
goosebumps.
in that.
The non-tourist towns are my people. Those are me. I'm a non-tourist town guy.
I'm a non-tourist town girl, but let's rewind
That's
for a
me.
second. I'm going to take you back for a moment for those people who are on the cusp, who are in a corporate setting, who are getting pulled by their heart. Talk to me about that moment, because there are many people who have fear of leaving, right? So there's the piece of security if you are in corporate America, or if you're in, a position. So talk to me about the moment that goes, yes, I'm going.
Okay, here's my best take today. Boy, I've thought about this. It's certainly not a buildup. It's certainly not, well, I'm kind of have angst. I kind of like this is, yeah. No, it's kind of like, no, no. And thank God, Joe, thank God, Joe, that was my colleague, um, said the 35-year quote, because that was it. Like, I never thought of that. No,
That was it. He
that was it.
basically painted a
No.
picture. He painted
Yeah.
a picture for you that
Yep.
most people maybe were thinking this is the way, and you
Yep.
take the road less traveled, literally, with a
Literally.
bike. Okay,
With a
that's
bicycle.
what I
Yeah.
wanted to nail right there.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
so you are an adventurer. So you put the VP hat on, then you put your adventurer hat on. Tell me the time when you lost your reason to live and how you got yourself out of that.
Um, it probably is the low point in my life is when my first wife, she had to leave. She just had to leave, and she left me if anybody's listening to this and you've been abandoned, and I get it, and it hurts, and I also know that I got abandoned. I got let down pretty easy. Like, still hurts, but some of your listeners, this is more normal for the one who's leaving to build a case, and then at that 11th hour tell you all of the crap, all the ways you could have been a better man or a better woman or a better partner or a better whatever, and then you're left holding all of this yuck, and then they're out the door, and it's like, oh, now I got all this yuck. And so my first wife didn't do that. She said, I got to go. And that was pretty tough. But she did say, you're the nicest man I'll ever meet. And you were a very good husband. Her dad committed suicide. And so that was tough on us all. It threw a hand grenade in our whole life
Was
for
this
some
so?
time.
Suicide comes in many forms. Sometimes people take their life, it's coming. Sometimes it's an extreme surprise. Sometimes you have no idea. So, which type of suicide?
Supreme. So he and I was in Alaska when he took his life. We were supposed to be in Minnesota in 2 days, and he and I had rented a canoe. We were going to go canoeing together down the Cannon River. He wanted to do that. And so he took his life before we left for Minnesota. So a total surprise. Like in 2 days, I was going to be canoeing with him instead of mourning his loss. So yeah, tough one. Tough one.
Yeah. And there's oftentimes with suicide, there's secrecy. And since your world doesn't revolve around secrecy, how did you move through that? And how did your wife move through that for those who are dealing with this?
Well, we're pretty upfront about it, I guess. I never had to couch it. I just told people. In my world, it's just so much easier just to tell everybody what's going on. You just don't have to oh, we shouldn't tell everybody the whole story. Well, if you want to hear the whole story, I'll tell you the whole story. So you tell me when to stop because I got nothing. I got no.
No
No,
shame. No shame,
yeah,
just a story.
yeah, yeah,
Yep.
and no veneer that I have to like. If you don't like me, it's okay. I mean, honest to God, it's okay. And it's a little bit bummer if I like you and you don't like me back. Then I feel like a little teenager, like but that's okay too. You don't have to like everybody that it's just blah blah blah.
So, Derek, for those people who are feeling shame around suicide, this is really important because a lot of people do. There's shame in sharing with people about what happened. For you, how were you able to share it, and how did people react to this? And obviously, there was a divorce afterwards, so there's some reconciliation of what's happening around this. I really want to get into the juice of this because so many people will tiptoe around what none of us feel like is taboo. So your norm is not everybody's norm, and I want to make that clear. So this is for our audience to hear. How did you work through that? How did your wife do that? Ex-wife at the time, wife at the
Yeah,
time. When we're talking about that topic.
yeah. Wow. So let's put the suicide in context. The first context is, my parents were BIA teachers, Bureau of Indian Affairs teachers, when I was very little, and so we were on the Standing Rock Reservation in North Dakota, and then moved to Moose Lake when I was a child. But so I. We didn't have suicides when I was growing up, but suicides became a thing when I moved to Arizona for grad school and then moved to Alaska for sure, where we had an epidemic of suicides among children. And so, because I was new to it, I thought we could do something about it. Still do. As a matter of fact, we did do something about it. So that's the end of the
We're going to
story,
go there
right? That's
too.
the
We're
end of
going
the
to do pain and
podcast.
purpose.
We did do something about it. But I made a vow back in 1990 that I would remember the name of every kid that committed suicide, that I knew. And to come about 1995, I couldn't remember them all anymore. Like there was so many. And
Specifically, where was this? Just so we have a context.
it was Alaska. We were for a while the highest suicide rate in the nation per capita.
Just Alaska in general. This is where they're.
Alaska, yeah, Alaska was we had a tough time, and there was for those of you listeners, you can probably do a Google search on the Anchorage Times did a very good piece, a week-long piece on suicide and what it might have meant, and that I was the vice president of Sheldon Jackson when that piece came out, And so we were addressing it at Sheldon Jackson College back then, and it was everywhere. It was a contagion. It was a contagion. I'll just tell you that. It got to be almost normalized, as well as other. I'm not throwing Alaska under the bus. There's other states were right behind us, Montana and Wyoming, and were some, but
dark and cold.
Yeah, that's what people would say. It's interesting that you say that, because people would say, "Well, Derek, it's because it's dark." Well, one of the cool things about Alaska is that if you believe in the Bering Land Bridge theory, which it is just a theory and it may not be true, but if people did walk across a Beringia and then come to Alaska, when they came to Alaska, they went, "Eureka, I've found it, and I'm not going any farther." Ergo, they've been dark and cold for maybe 20,000 years, and you don't have Alaskans in the state if you have a suicide rate. That's how it works. So no, suicide was a new thing. Was a new thing. Yeah.
So talk to me after you couldn't remember the names, and that was your goal. What was there an impetus for you to start helping within this space?
Yeah, well, that was where the bike trip came in, because let's talk about that. Let's talk about pedaling we never pedaled over 100 miles a day just because why? You missed something. And we slept in the ditches of the Western Hemisphere. I think we in 2.5 years had like nine hotels. That was another story. Where we stayed in people's houses. We were taken in. When you go to rural world, non-tourist world, people are different. I'll just tell you that. People are more accepting. They were of us anyway. But let's just say we did take rest days, but let's just say when we're on the bike, 40 to 100 miles a day. And so your heart is working, your lungs are working, your mind is working, your body's working. And so is your soul, right? I mean, most people go to a health club for a few hours a day. Good on us. Imagine doing that 8 hours a day or more, right? And just working that through. Then you know what else happens is no noise. You get to wonder about suicide in your own head. You get to wonder why. And you get, how many people, even in a PhD program, get to think your own thoughts? I mean, it's almost a drug to think, and it's dangerous. You can become Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber too. But that he was by himself. I had a wife, so the wife is a good mitigating. Exactly.
Yes.
Hey,
so you're thinking, Derek, you're in the quiet moments. I see you. I know this in the rural places around the world. I see you. You're thinking, you're having these moments, and the suicide piece comes through. So what happens next?
Yeah. So you ask why, right? Why? Why are we losing kids? Why are we losing people? Mm-hmm. So pain isn't bad. Pain sucks. Okay. Pain sucks. Okay. So everybody, pain sucks. And you want to get rid of it. And so have I had pain? I've had soul pain. I've had psychological pain. I have had physical pain where I was in a back brace for a while after a rock climbing fall in the 80s. I've had pain. Okay, pain. Okay. Then there's suffering, right? Then there's just suffering. So what is suffering? What's the difference? Pain, you kind of assume is going to go away hopefully if everything goes right. Now some of your listeners are going to be hurt, and they're going to maybe not have pain go away, or hopefully there'll be some medication that'll numb the pain. But then suffering is is pain without a purpose. And
beautiful.
That sucks. So pain really sucks, but suffering sucks. And what do I mean by sucks? Like, he means it stinks. No, I mean it sucks the life force out of you. It sucks the hope out of you. It sucks the light out of you. It's darkness. And if you're not careful, it's self-generating. I mean, suffering is like rolling down the hill in a tire, like you see on YouTube. A kid will jump in a tractor tire on a hill and jump in the tire, and about halfway down, it's usually a boy, says, "I don't want to be here anymore." And you can't be. I mean, you don't want to be there, but the tire's going where it's going. It's got its own force, and you're going all the way to the bottom. And that's when people say, you got to hit the bottom before you, well, no, you don't. You don't have to, like, jump out before the momentum gets too high. I have a story about that, matter of fact. But so suffering is important. Pain is important. Suffering is important. And so in my worldview, it's easier to start something than stop something. So most people want to stop the pain. And to me, that wasn't good math. I thought, we can start something. I'll start something else. Or suffering. Oh gosh, I don't want to see this to the end. I'm going to start something, because I do believe it's almost impossible to stop something. Starting something means you're going to displace with hope and light and love what was really sucking all the lightness out of your soul. And there you go. Easier to start something than stop something.
There's the piece that there is pain and that there is suffering. And that if we're going into the pain, this is where, if you're consciously going and not pushing it away, this is where some of the wisdom and the doors open. But what I'm hearing you saying is also the suffering piece is when you're staying in it, and it's almost a victim mentality versus finding the wisdom within it and moving forward. Is that fair?
It is fair. And what's important though about suffering is usually done alone. By yourself. It's a solo journey. It is a boy in a tractor tire going down the hill too fast. It's alone.
Suffering is doing it alone. Tell us what you have created in this world to help people not suffer alone. Talk to us about, you've been using the word PH as in PH family. Nobody here, many people won't know what that means. Talk to us about what you have created so that people don't feel alone, don't feel the suffering.
If you're an American, thank you. Our government gave me a whole boatload of money to tell you what I guess we forgot. And so common sense ain't so common anymore, right? And for sure, common sense ain't common experience these days, right? If you're from Geneva, Switzerland, thank you. You have a foundation there that gave us a lot of money. Not to me. I'm not rich. I'm actually very not. No, that's not true. I'm rich beyond my wildest dreams. I don't have a lot of money. So my point is, I hired very smart people. I can measure how much love you feel and correlate that to your ability to cope with your suffering, cope with your pain, learn from your pain, and I can correlate it to your eventual likelihood of flourishing and avoiding risk behaviors along the way, like suicidal ideation, suicide, drugs and alcohol, all those things that other people, normal people, use to mitigate their pain. I can measure all of the protective factors that are present in a person's life, and you know what? It's good math. I can show people a roadmap. Not a roadmap. I can show them a topo map, a topological map, give you compass points, show you where you got to get to, and you can create your own way to flourishing and turning your pain into a gift and stopping your suffering so you can get on with the next chapters of your life and putting your light in the world. I can do that.
And you've done this through full color web of support, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this is tell us what full color web of support is.
Okay. So the data came before the story. That's way important. Data came before the story. So we had good data. I just told you that. We had good data. Now, how do you tell the story to the world? And so I was in Alaska at the time, and the Eskimo blanket toss was a metaphor that a lot of us use, because a bunch of community members putting usually a child, usually a girl, somebody light and flexible, athletic, in the middle of an Eskimo blanket toss, pull it up and launch them high so they could see the horizon. That's what, and it was a celebration, but it was also functional. And we thought, well, that's what we want for kids. Kids who are on an Eskimo blanket toss, seeing the horizon, don't commit suicide. That was one of our suppositions, right? They're loved because they're launched, right? Mm-hmm. And so we took that around the state, because we're a statewide initiative, and it didn't resonate because, one, there's people who don't know the Eskimo blanket toss. People who aren't Eskimos. They're of another First Nation or American Indian or indigenous community, or they're from Russia, or they're from Somalia, or they're Americans, right? And so, so we eventually came up with this idea of a web of support because, and this is where your suffering comes in, Jen, is it needed to have cracks in it. One of the ways that the metaphor didn't work with the Eskimo blanket toss is you couldn't fall through, and that's not how life works. It's much more of a complex adaptive system, and so you want this web of support. So if you're listening to this podcast, I want you to envision 5 people standing in a circle, holding with 1 or 2 hands this pieces of this rope or string that is woven through and across all of you, that's creating a web. You know that there's holes. You can see it. It's not an Eskimo, but it's full of holes. And then you're going to put a child on top of that, or you're going to put yourself on top of that. How thick is your web, right? How thick a web do you need to take the risks that you need to get through your pain, to get through, to end your suffering and move to the next opportunity to have pain and suffering. That's all it is. It's just like stumbling into the next pain, because that's where the growth happens. And so that's the web of support. And the PH family is.
One sec before you just say the PH family. One before. The goal of your organization is
the grant goal, or the real goal is to live an interesting life. The real goal of our organization is to create capacity for kids and adults to live a fulfilling life, one of their choice. Because, that's all I know.
Is that correct? With the whole point of this is to have that support for the child, the 5.
Exactly.
So that's what I want people to take away from this. So many people, what I'm hearing you, why the suicides from what we talked about before, why does this happen? Because there is a lack of support, and your organization brings in to picture the 5. So go ahead, share with us about the PH and the 5.
It's a lack of support because it's the support that gives you meaning. Like meaning doesn't come from thin air. There's I'm a kid of the 60s, right? And 70s. And so there was books out about find yourself, go, Jack Kerouac, on the road, go. I went on the road. I've been on the road. Find yourself if I had a bicycle by myself, I'd have had a whole different experience than bicycling with my wife. And if I would have just bicycled on like a track and not met thousands of people who took me in and my wife in and had conversations around tables and around campfires and in trailer courts and in little huts in Mexico, I wouldn't know what I know. And so context and meaning is created within community. So this is finally Jen's question. The American myth of the biological family, right? Now, if you were born with a bio family that you fit into, that's the best way to do it. You won the lottery of life. That's like easy. That's like being born with $100 million and not losing it, right? Like, good on you. Good on you. But because Americans are having fewer and fewer kids, 1, 2, or 3 instead of 13. When I grew up in the 60s, we had people on farms who had literally 13 kids. Well, what do you know about a family with 13 kids? All of those bio kids are not going to fit into the fat family system. And we had words for that back in the day. The black sheep of the family, the one that was quirky, the one that was, we had a word called bucky. It meant like a horse, but they were a little bucky. You know what? That doesn't mean that, but there was so much pressure to fit in. No, there wasn't. There was a whole region of people who would take in a bucky kid because they were normal in their family. They fit there, so that idea of these other adults coming into children's lives, that's what we started measuring. And when we looked for all kinds of other word for family, but you know what? There is no other word for family. So it's a great story. We were in a gymnasium in northern Alaska, above the Arctic Circle, and my kids were teaching me, and I was sharing my stuff with them, but my kids were teaching me. And one of the young men, 17 years old, I'll never forget him. He said, "Derek, because we were looking for another name, right? And we were doing this for like a year, right? And it
Mhm.
wasn't for
Yeah.
branding, it was just a name that mattered. And he said,
Yeah.
Derek, it's a family with a PH because there's no other word for family. You just have to spell it differently. And this room of Athabascan teenagers started creating the gym floor like a drum, boom, 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 and they were chanting, they were screaming like it was like an epiphany. And I'm looking at the adults in the room. I'm like, that's it, that's it. And why a PH? Because in my life, I tell Jen, I love you. I think I probably told you that when I first met you. Like, I love you. Some people go, Derek, you're pretty loose with that love word. Like, guys, it's okay to love people. That's the whole point of life is to love people. Now, most people get bogged down in eros, but there's many other loves under love. They get bogged down in smoochy, smoochy, kissy, kissy.
So
Like,
much.
that's not the way I love Jen. I love her the rest of the ways, right? Agape.
Mhm.
So I would go into schools across the country and around the world, and I would say, I love you, I love you. And people are like, Derek, we're a public school. You can't say I love you. You can't say I love you to those kids. Yeah, I can. I'm not an employee here. I'm a consultant. I can say as many times as I want. Well, it's weird. It's weird. And then the kids would titter, right? It would titter because if you're an American kid, it's all about eros, right? And once my kids got to know me, I would say PH love because of philia. And most of my kids knew Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love with two PHs in it. That was my cop out. It's brotherly love. It's philia. Oh, PH love. So then when I would yell down the hall, hey, hey, Sam, I love you. And the kid would look at, usually the other boy would titter, haha. Sam would go, PH love, man, PH love. He means PH love. And we normalized that PH, not even thinking it would be a PH family. So that's what had the scaffold before we got to the PH family. So that's what I create. I go out in the world and I can help. I can help anybody. I can support you in finding the family that you have, the PH family you have, and then growing it intentionally. And that will, I can almost guarantee you an interesting life. I can
And
almost guarantee it.
when children are going through this program, you've implemented this around the world. You've implemented it around the world, correct?
Yeah, not in Southeast Asia. Well, yeah, yeah, a
Many
little bit
parts
in
of the world.
Thailand, but yeah, not in Southeast Asia.
Many
Yeah,
parts
but
of
yeah,
the
pretty
world.
much around the world.
So,
We can go to every continent. We can do
and
every
you've
continent.
worked with suicide, sexual abuse. You've worked with so many aspects with these children.
AIDS. I've worked with AIDS people in
AIDS.
South Africa and in Namibia. I worked with the World Health Organization people. Yeah.
So Derek, this is prime real estate here for Don't Waste Your Pain. So I want you to tell me a story where you worked with a child that brought you to your knees and opened your heart. Like you had a moment with them with this program. Give me a moment that you can remember.
So how about this? I'm gonna change it a little bit so that there's no possible way you would ever know by doing a Google search or that you would know. So one of my kids walked into his house after his uncle had committed suicide, shot himself in the mouth with a 12 gauge shotgun. Is that graphic enough, everybody? Okay. You can imagine what that looks like, right? Imagine what that looks like to a 14-year-old boy, right? Right? Okay. And and that 14-year-old boy is now in his 40s, and he's in my life still.
Hmm.
And and he's doing really well. And again, I can't tell you. I mean, one, the West is so impressed by all the things you acquire and all the education. He did that. But I want you to be impressed with it. He's a good dad, and he's a good husband, and he's a good neighbor. And the reason I cry, because top of mind, he just called me a couple days ago, Happy New Year stuff. And I was congratulating him on his life, and he said, it's all because of you. And I said, yeah. I said, you give me too much credit. I said, it's all because of the work. It's all because of what you learned. He said, yeah, but you should get credit for being the first person to tell me how the world works. And I said, so we cried together on the phone, and I'm way proud of him. Proud of all my kids, and I really am proud of all my kids. And they sometimes, if you look on Facebook, if you friend me on Facebook, they'll call me their PH dad. You can know who my kids are because they'll say PH dad.
You're a global dad. You
Yeah,
love the
yeah.
big hug. You're the safe space where people didn't have the safe space. And it's what the program that you created. So I can see how much this touches you to be able to see what did you say, like 40 years later, he is this father, he is in the world doing beautiful things because he had this web that was created for him to support him as he grows.
Jen, I had a shaman introduce me at a keynote speech in Juarez during the drug war. I was doing some work with kids, about 400 kids, and he got up and I'm paraphrasing it because it's just easier for your audience. But as he introduced me, and he's an elderly man, and we had talked for a long time before he introduced me, and he said, Derek. Derek is going to show you the invisible so that you can do the impossible. And that was honest to God. That was like the essence of his whole, like, I don't think he said more than 5 sentences after that. And the audience was like, what is he talking about? And then we showed him. And we were in the midst of the drug war in Juarez, in the shutdown, and in the lack of community, and the fear, and we, well, about 350 of us, mostly youth, and a few adults, talked about love and talked about what Juarez can be after people decide they've had enough of what they're currently doing. So yeah, Jen, we can show people the invisible so they can do the impossible. And I say that because suicide in our mind is such a contagion. If it happened, we can do it too. And we can break that contagion by building PH Family and showing people a path forward.
So, for people who are listening who were not born in family, a biological family that supported them, I love how passionate you are. I
One,
love
they're normal. Let's just start there.
Good.
Let's
Thank
just
you.
start with
They're normal. Okay.
congratulations, you're normal.
You're normal. Okay, so that's an honoring that they are not in the other side. There is many people who don't have that. There are also many people, and we know this, there's so many statistics on loneliness in this world, especially like now with social media and everybody being disconnected. What I hear you have created, also share the website that they can go to around this in particular, so people can hear this and take note. It will be also in our notes.
Yeah.
The website is
So it's www. And I want you to think of the story of Icarus and
oh
the
yeah,
boy,
just
yeah, Icarus, and the boy who was his dad, Daedalus, had him fashion wings of wax, and Icarus.com. And there's a hyphen between the R and the U, so it's ICAR-US.com. You might want to edit. I don't know about this, but you keep giving me credit for creating this. That's a Western thing. I'd rather. I think it's more honest to be really direct. It's more honest to say either I was given it and I caught it, right? I was tossed it by the gods or by people, depending on your or the gods inside people, the gods through people, depending on your paradigm, or I stumbled upon it. I was busy doing something else, and the ivory soap bar floated instead of sank like all the of soap bars before it, and I'm the inventor of Ivory soap. No, I wasn't. I was fooling around, and I wouldn't pay attention to my formula, and I stumbled it.
What I hear you saying is there was the wise one within the whisper, and you acted on your dream and you worked with a community to create this. This is not you alone. You can be the speaker in front of a presentation, but we all know, any of us who have created anything worth impact, know you can never do it alone. I hear you and I see you.
Thank you.
I also want them to know where to go
Okay,
online.
there you go.
I
You can
also,
find me. I do hold it for now. I'm trying my
yes,
hardest to give it away. I do
I
hold
love
it
it.
for
Give
now.
it away. I also, you have seen so much darkness. Everybody who comes on the show is someone who can hold the dark and the light in the same hand. You've done this since birth, practically, when we talked about death. That's why I started there. If you can hold the darkness from very early on, you can hold the light for everyone else. And I see that for you. So when you are speaking, and this is going to be general because I what we want to know is the wisdom within the darkness so that people know when they're sitting with disease. You've worked with HIV, AIDS, sexual assaults, war. You've been in the places with people who have sat in the darkness and then risen into that space of light, not running from it, but being with it. So, what I want to share with the audience is the glimpse of wisdom, the light that came from their pain. So, if you think about a moment in time where you were working with a child who's an adult now, maybe, can you talk to us about what is some wisdom you can share that they imparted upon you? Children are our teachers, right? So, what did they impart upon you that you can share with us, the audience, who many people have never experienced all of these things that you've experienced? Does that make sense?
It does. It makes very much sense. And I can think of two things right off the top of my head. The first one is I call myself a Taoist Christian. Okay.
I love that.
It's not, so Taoism is a philosophy and Christianity is
Yes.
a faith. And why do I do that? Because sometimes people will ask me, oftentimes, Derek, are you a Christian? And if I'm busy, I'll say, what do you think? And then I'll leave it, right? Like, what do you think? Like, because that's the
Whatever.
easiest. You're going to define me
I
anyway.
like
What do you
that.
think?
Yes.
If I have more time, I will say, I will answer that question if you give me 30 minutes. And they're like, whoa, whoa. And then if you give me 30 minutes, I'll talk about Taoism as a way to move through life and have faith that you're going to have darkness, you're going to have light, you're going to have darkness, you're going to have light, you're going to have darkness, and you're going to have light, and then you have light at the very end. You had light before you came to earth, and you had some darkness in that womb, and then you leave the world, and you have light, and you go to darkness for a little bit, but probably more light right on the other side. Because then if you ever hear anybody talk about death, they say, go to the light, go to the light. Like, duh, how about doing that during your lifetime? How about just practice that all the way?
And sit with the darkness long enough so that you get the wisdom and then move into the light so that you have that clarity.
Yeah,
What is some of the wisdom you've reaped from these children
yeah,
who've been through so much pain? Because we have people with lots of pain listening and they're wanting to know how to get to the other side. So,
yeah.
what was some of the wisdom that you received? If you can remember, I don't know, if there's
Yep,
specifics
I
or a
got it.
general.
I got it. I got so many kids popcorn in my head. Here we
Yes.
go. What I realized from my teachers, the kids, is that I couldn't fix it, and I couldn't remove it. I couldn't remove the pain, and that's what I was trained to do. So, honest to God, I've never been a practicing counselor in my life. I never have used my degree. That's
Let's
okay.
pause for a second. Let's
Okay.
pause for a second. I really want to honor what you just said. You weren't here to fix or what the pain? You're to
Remove it,
fix
to take it away.
or remove. Bingo. I want to drive that home.
Yeah.
You weren't here to
Yeah.
fix it or remove it. What did this work do?
The gift I was given, the gift I was shown, and with the kids as my teachers is this. If you really believe it's a gift, Now, that's not like I kind of believe it's a gift. That doesn't help you very much because it hurts. And like, I don't want this gift. I reject the gift. It's terrible, right? Like, yes, it is terrible. But let's talk about, so two things, Jen. One, I tell my kids into, through, and beyond. Into, through, and beyond. If there's any mantra that comes through my work when I'm dealing with kids who've been sexually assaulted or who've been hurt, into, through, and beyond. And like, what does that mean? So now you're into the experience, and you're gonna want, right? You're gonna want to be through it fast. I want the pain to go away. Give me some alcohol. Give me some drugs. Give me some sex. Give me something that isn't painful. Well, that's not going to get you very far. It's only going to increase the pain and prolong the pain. I will guarantee that, right? I can tell you how that ends, right? Now, if you can embrace the pain everybody's going to want to do it fast on steroids, like where you have to speed everything up, like everything in its time, but you still have to do the work. But part of the work is I'm okay where I'm at because I have enough community around me, a PH family that I'm being authentic with, and they're watching because you don't want to go into, through, and beyond alone, right? It's like being how many of you were little kids when you were maybe played softball and you were at the batter's box and you looked around to see if your mom or dad or somebody who loved you was watching before you swung the bat? Or if you were look at me, mommy, and look at me going down the slide for the first time, right? We're not any different from that from adults. Like, you want to have people who are a witness to your life. Doesn't mean they're going to be in the journey with you. They do not have to suffer with you. Matter of fact, it's better if they don't, because you need people who aren't suffering to remind you that suffering is into, through, and beyond. You are going to get beyond it. Second thing, after you embrace that, I want kids to understand that, and boy, it's hard. I mean, do I tell a 14-year-old who's been sexually abused, this is a gift? Hell no. I'm not an idiot. But do you start subtly with the story, planting the seed that this does not define you? That this does not define, this happened to you. This is like a car accident. This is like an airplane crash. This is like a disease. This happened to you. This is not something that you did. And what we teach kids, why I had tears in my eyes before, is because we say we call them sinkers. My kids, interestingly enough, called them stinkers. And they put moose pellets, moose turds are about this big, and that's how it feels. Like you got your soul full of stinkers, moose turds. And they're like, well, we can't really get enough moose turds for the whole world. So we call them sinkers, like fishing lead, right? And what we teach kids are, you won't ever get rid of those sinkers, but if you grow your balloon, your soul big enough, it will be in relation to the size of the sinker. So when your soul is small and the sinker is big, it's a percentage of your soul, and God, it feels heavy. But into, through, and beyond will grow your soul so big that that sinker will feel like it wasn't even a very big deal. Matter of fact, I have people in their 40s, like the kid I just talked about, will say, you were right. You were right. That became a blessing. Like, Derek, as bizarre as it is to say it, it became a blessing, right?
Yes.
So this is the last thing I'll do in a school, because I'll take the kids to a library. Every school's got a library. Nashville, Atlanta, a little bush village, a native village in northern Canada, they have a library. There's books, right? We're schools, they're books. And I'll go, it's like a sacred moment. I'll stand around the autobiography section of the book of the library, and I'll say, I will guarantee you that if you start reading these books, that every one of these great Canadians, great Americans, great Zimbabwe men and women, great Mexicans, they had sinkers. I will guarantee you that they all had sinkers. And so you can't, and I'm not telling to one kid now, I'm telling to a group. So in the quiet of your mind, someday, remember that when you write your autobiography, it's going to go on a shelf, and your sinkers were a part of the greatness that allowed you to write the book. And my kids are, these are teenagers from all different cultures in many different languages, sometimes translated languages I don't even speak. And they go, that's true.
It's
And what did
true.
Plato say? That's useful.
Derek, everything about this is stunning. I completely hear you. Your intro, so into, through, and beyond. I also, that for me, it's pain, purpose, possibility. The 3 Ps is the same as into, through, beyond, right? You sit with the pain, you presence with the pain, you find purpose in it. When you speak about the grief, about the turds, the moose turds, right? Everybody has that place. I see that as grief. So when you are in the acute experience of death, of whether it's a loved one, a identity, a physical ailment that's taken something away from you, when you are right in the acute moment, it's fucking huge. That's a huge turd, as you would call it. But what's interesting, and I was picturing the image of grief, you've seen that grief will always stay with you, just like these moments of pain are part of you. They don't become the gift until you can be as Khalil Gibran would say, the mountain is much easier to see from the distance, right? So when you can step back, all of a sudden you're able to see it as the gift. Same with that, grief becomes less than when you become further from it, but it's still there, right? That rock I picture that glass. Have you seen the grief diagram where it's a huge rock in the glass container, and then as it goes further and further away, it's still in there, but it's a smaller rock? So when you were speaking about the moose turd, that's where my mind was going. And then taking them back to the library, full circle, there's that moment where there is no shame. There's just our stories, and that you are the survivor, and you are more than a survivor. You're bringing that, what might seem shameful to many, all of a sudden, it's just a story that makes us more alike than we are different. So what beauty you have brought to the world. I want anybody who is feeling that sense of loneliness to please check that out. The links will be in the bio as well. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us, and how people can help you make an impact, or if they're searching and looking for that witness, that family with a PH? Is there anything they can help or look for?
Yes, I mean, we have a movement, right? It's called it's a flock, PHLOCK, because there's a bunch of strange and beautiful birds. It is not a church. It's a bunch of strange people, beautiful people, trying to become who they want to become. You're sure it's very inclusive. We are we're a piece of work. And we're very loving, and we go out and my folks go out and carry this message inside themselves and to their own families and to people around, and you're always welcome to join that. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful, beautiful. If you could leave the listeners with one question to live into, what would it be?
I hate to be kind of typical, but and I want to say it's Mary Oliver, but I don't think it's Mary Oliver. Maybe it's Mary Oliver. The last line of Wild Geese. What are you going to do with your one wild and precious life? Yeah. What are you going to do? Right. What are you going to do? Are you going to, Jen's talking to you about your pain. I'm talking a little bit about that. Jen knows much more about that than I do. What are you going to do? Because the world needs what you're going to do. That's the honest to God truth. And the world that needs it are the people that are right around you. Yeah. And that's the world. We in my work, we call it the world, WHIRLED, the whole world.
I love it. I love it. So I love that. We have the Seed of Wisdom tradition. So after, with this tradition, each guest leaves a piece of wisdom for the next guest. So This is a seed of wisdom that was left for you. So I'll read that to you. Take it in. So, vulnerability is how you heal. Talk with people who can show you what you might not see in yourself and help you recognize your patterns. Give yourself space to pause and listen instead of pushing for answers. That clarity anchors you in who you are and why you do the work you do, allowing you to return to it with purpose and clarity. That seems perfect for what we just spoke about. Isn't that lovely?
Perfect, yeah. I caught it. I got it. I caught it and got it. Yeah.
I
caught
love it. I
and
love
got
it. So before we close, I want to invite you to leave a seed of wisdom as well, and a truth that your life taught you, or a piece of wisdom that was given to you that will pass on to the next guest.
So I'm in another village. I'm in something called the Alaska Native Brotherhood Hall in this village. That's those of you who know anything about that, don't look and Google it.
Right.
And this guy gets up, and it's a classic. I'm not going to tell you what nation he's from, but he's in a classic warrior pose. And he said, "You white people," and he's staring right at me. And I'm like, okay, this is not good. Like, I really stepped in it here. And like, my mind, like, it kind of break out in a cold sweat, like, okay. And he waited like elders do, like 3 heartbeats. And I swore you could see my heart beating out of my shirt, right? Like, because I'm like, oh no. And he said these words, "You're always stealing our stuff."
Mm.
And I went, okay, yeah, where's he going with this? Like, yes, that's true. But
Yes.
and he said, this is our story. This story is our story. This is what we grew up in. This is what our ancestors, this is what our tribal teachings teach us. And we have forgotten it. And we got to have a white guy come in and tell us, to remind us what our story was. And he said, we're out to sea with our children. And everyone in this room, we've got to build a web of support for children. What's important to your viewers is I've done that in conservative Christian churches in Tennessee who say, "You're stealing our stuff. This is in the gospel, but we forgot. We need an outsider to remind us." I've done that. Right now we have a big project in the slums of Lagos, Nigeria. You know what they're saying? "You're stealing our stuff. We forgot this. We forgot this." I'm right now in Mexico. I'm working in some schools in some regions down here. I hear it all the time. "You're stealing our stuff," in perfect Spanish or Zapotec or some other language. When I say I was given it, Jen, I was given it, or I found it, or I stumbled upon it. But some smart people, mostly young people, think that we got it. And I just want to share it. And I hope that your next viewers are sharing things that are congruent or coherent with this idea that we need each other, that hope is believing in spite of the evidence and watching the evidence change, and that your pain is a gift. I hope that all of your podcast people communicate that to people.
Oh, you nailed that. That is so powerful. I see you as the witness, the fatherly witness across the world. I see you as the one who holds everyone's hands and continues everyone is holding the hand together in your space. It's an our space. It's not a yours space, right? Because all it is being a mirror, waking people up to what they already know. So I see you as just a humble messenger with people coming in Mexico, in Nigeria, in the States, coming through different avenues, but saying the same thing, that we all are more alike than we are different, that we all need to be connected, that we all are connected. It's just the remembering of it. Yeah. Beautiful. There's one thing I felt like was missing, which is such a huge portion of your work, which is within the Native American culture. I don't know what it is, but it's something, either it was an aha moment with a young girl or boy, or it was an elder. There's something that I feel like we are supposed to have in this that wasn't said? Does this ring a bell?
Well, I mean, I don't really talk about this very much, but maybe because it's you. And so I got taken to a. This is the story that you might want to be careful with. And just I don't even know. I'm going to tell you because I love you, and then I'm going to trust that you're going to do what you need to do with it. So I am at a traditional ceremony in central New Mexico, and this tribe, this nation, uses fetishes. It's your spirit animal, right? Your spirit animal. And I was invited to the ceremony, and I wasn't supposed to participate. I was just there because I was back at Flagstaff, back in NAU. But I tend to be not afraid of people, and so you just ask. Most people, you ask great questions, and instead of the minute you start telling people instead of asking people, you're not making friends. I'll just warn everybody. So I was just asking questions, and I struck up with this elder, and then a couple other elders. I didn't know anything about them. We were just laughing and talking and sharing stories, just like you and I are doing, kind of. And he said, I want to put you in the ceremony. I'm like, so the other rule for all your listeners are say yes to everything. I mean, just say yes. I mean, in our work, it's called scissors cuts. It's blue as scissors cuts in the web of support. If you do things that cut your web, make those choices, guess what? Your web's going to get thinner in a heartbeat. I'll just tell you, you're going to lose people. So be intentional with what you say yes to. But if you want to build your web, you're usually saying yes. Your default is yes. So I'm sitting there. I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm watching, though, a learner. You watch, there's about 8 of us, and they're getting their fetish. It's a pretty big deal. I don't know so that's your totem animal. That's your spirit animal. That's the animal that's going to guide you for the rest of your life. This is in the 80s, like this is 86. And so I'm sitting there and, gosh, I'm a young man. I'm in my 20s, right? I want a bear, right? Or dragon, or, mountain lion, cougar, right? Come on, man. What 20-year-old doesn't want to be a cougar, right? And so when it comes to me, he gives me my totem, and it's a ceremony, and it's like a blessing at church, but it's more, it takes longer, it's more elaborate. And he gives me a dragonfly. And some of your listeners probably know what that is, and maybe you do, Jen, by saying, ooh, I was so disappointed. I was just like, a dragonfly? Like, really? I don't want to be a dragonfly. That's, I'm in my 20s. I want to be a bear. I want to be a buffalo. And so a dragonfly. So I took it. I was, of course, give what you receive with honor. You don't. No, I want something else. I'm an American. I want another flavor. No, you don't say that in ceremony. That's ridiculous. Or you worse, you discount it. Like I don't have to believe it's my spirit animal. I can believe I'm a cougar. Like Americans do that too. That's our ego, right? Mm-hmm. And so I got it and I held it and I held my my little totem thing. And then after the ceremony, the elders were like coming over like, oh, Derek, wow, congratulations. And they were touching me and pulling on me and like kind of like a church service in the Southeast, a lot of touching and so one of the elders came to me and said, that's the right one. You're gonna work hard. You're gonna work hard for that one. And I'm like, okay. So a dragonfly, long story short, is the totem that allows people to go. It's the animal that goes to the heavens and comes back to earth, and it's a messenger to go back and forth and back and forth. So your loser, your users, your listeners can go, okay, he is psychotic. He's crossed the line. I've never thought that I'm a messenger between. I don't ever own that, but I am a dragonfly. It's my totem animal. And when I get in spaces like your podcast, I really want you to know that the wisdom of the elders has stood the research test of time, and we can time travel, and we can go from high, lofty places of ideas, where the gods are, where the mysteries are, and we can take them right back here to earth. And that's what Jen's podcast is doing for you guys. She's giving you several opportunities by going high into the metaphysical parts of the world that are unstandable and the mysteries, but are just as real. as the pain that you're feeling right now on Earth, both are essential.
Oof.
Be a dragonfly.
Ooh. Thank you for that story, for the truth. And that is 100% true. You're doing this. We're doing this all together. We're going into those beautiful mystical places, but we're grounding them with science and pain and the earthly aspects. And you can decide as a listener, wherever you want to be, there is no judgment here. Just us sharing stories.
Just sharing stories. Yeah.
Sharing stories and learning from one another. Thank you so much for your time, Derek. Really appreciate you. Till next time.
Till next time, Jen. Thank you. You did a great. It was a lot of fun. I love you. I love the work you're doing, and I can hardly wait till the next time and the time after that.
Woo! Pain isn't the problem. Suffering is pain without purpose and without people. You don't get through life by fixing or erasing what hurts you. You get through by going into it, through it, and beyond it, with witnesses who know your name. Derek shows us that none of us are broken, just human. That love doesn't have to be romantic to be life-saving. And that the web matters more than the hero. Pain leaves residue, wisdom leaves seeds. So if this conversation stirred something in you, maybe the next brave act isn't doing it alone. Until next time, don't waste your pain. Use it for good.